JD, thanks for the introduction. So as JD mentioned, my name is Guru. I'm founder and CEO of FairNow, and we're a consulting and technology company helping educate people on AI governance, helping educate organizations on AI governance, and helping simplify and automate AI governance. And I have two goals for you over the next 20 minutes. One is to convince you that this is a really important topic, AI governance, and the other is to hopefully get you involved. One of the questions people often ask is, AI is going to replace what jobs and what skills and what tasks, and they don't spend enough time asking what jobs is it going to create, and it's going to create jobs, and this is one of those areas. AI governance is already growing, and it's going to become a bigger and bigger field, and especially people analytics practitioners are really set up to become experts in this topic and to lead in their organizations on this topic. So hopefully you come away thinking about how you're going to do that. Not working, the clicker? Do I have to point it at something? Oh, there we go. Hopefully it doesn't go 5 slides forward now. So for those of you who don't follow AI as closely as I do, I'll kind of catch you up on some things that are happening. How many of you saw the memo by the CEO of Shopify? Raise your hand. Small number, yeah. I'll give you a quick summary of it. You see one of the quotes directly from the memo there. So the CEO of Shopify has put out a memo declaration around the strategic importance of AI inside the organization. And some of the couple themes around it. One is AI use and knowledge will be part of performance and talent management going forward at Shopify. And two, he's expecting people to come understanding what AI can do in their jobs, in their organizations, before they ask for more resources. It's a pretty big deal. And if we head into a recession in the second half of this year, I expect more organizations to be following suit, right? And so this is really laying down the marker, saying, hey, look, okay, everyone's been talking about it. No, now we're going to put this into action. And here's some of the reasons why we're heading in that direction, right? So the costs of inference around AI have plummeted 250% just in the last 2 years. Since I remember when we first started FairNow, what the costs were, and they've come down so much. Inference is when you're using the AI, when you're interacting with it, right? As opposed to pre-training, which is all the training that was already done. So there's pre-training and there's inference. Inference is when you're interacting with it and it's going and coming back with responses. The costs of that have fallen 240% in the last 2 years, and it's going to continue to fall. The performance, for a long time, there were issues with the AI around reasoning and math. That's starting to change now. So now it's as good as gold level math Olympiad participants, which is kind of the top end of human capabilities in math. It's also getting better at reasoning, planning, and this is where you're starting to hear about agents, because that's what agents are going to do. They're not just going to talk back to you and react to you. They're going to actually plan and execute tasks, and so that's why agents are on the cusp, right? And so you see all these things that the technology developing, and kind of the next order of things is really for adoption to take off. And we're starting to see it. We're starting to see a lot of companies invest in pilots and proof of concepts and so on and so forth. But that hurdle of adoption hasn't happened yet. And there's one really, really, really big reason for that. And it's around the risks. Because even as this technology gets better, the risks continue to grow. There's a database that tracks kind of harmful incidents around AI, and there's more and more tracking of what these harms can be. We work across sectors, but HR is one of the big sectors we work in, and so I talk to a lot of HR leaders as well as HR tech vendors, and HR is going to be one of those places where AI is going to be most disruptive. Especially, we've talked to, on the vendor side, already existing vendors are all incorporating AI into their products. And then there's dozens and dozens, I can't tell you how many new AI startups, specifically in the HR technology space, specifically in TA, talent acquisition, across the entire process. It's quite remarkable. I expect the TA process to look really different 3 to 4 years from now. Everything from sourcing candidates to writing job descriptions to interviewing candidates, and not all of these are they ready yet. The technology is ready yet, but I think a lot of customers don't know this, right? It's close, but not ready yet, and they're starting to adopt this without knowing what risks they're taking on. And so this is really the challenge here, right? So I often say the biggest challenge you can take as an organization is to not invest in AI. If you're just waiting and saying, hey, let's see how it goes, there's a huge risk you're taking in doing that because your competitors are out investing, the market's investing, and it's going to leave you by. But the second biggest risk you can take is not governing it and not managing the risk. And so I see a bit of both. I see a bit of those where companies are really waiting. And that's gonna be a challenge when the time comes for you to invest in AI if you're not investing in the talent, the resources, the data, et cetera. And so what do you do to square that circle, right? And this is where I want to talk about governance. Governance squares that circle. It's that bridge. I'll give you a couple of examples, right? Anytime you have a powerful technology, governance, which is this kind of behind-the-scenes things, ends up being really, really important for adoption. And I'll give you one example on one side of the coin and one on the other. So nuclear energy never quite built the trust with the public about its potential, its risks, all of that kind of stuff. And so a couple of big incidents, and we stopped investing in nuclear energy, which is a loss. On the flip side, let's take something we all know a lot about, our automobile, right? Transformed the 20th century. If I told you, starting tomorrow, stop signs, traffic lights, cops, laws, seatbelts, technology, sensors, all of that would go away. None of you would get in a car. We just take an automobile for granted, but underlying that is all of this governance, technology governance, monitoring governance, regulatory governance, guardrails. This is actually what happened when cars first came out. People don't know this, but the history of the automobile, it took decades for the automobile to take off. And there were a couple of reasons for that, but the risk management was one of them. And it wasn't until that got safer that adoption took off, and now we take it for granted. But this is where we are on the AI journey. There's nothing out there. There's some laws starting to come into place, but we are so in the top of the first inning around this stuff. I saw this firsthand when I was at Capital One. Some of you may know me from my previous gig where I was head of people and technology at Capital One, people analytics and technology at Capital One, and I wanted to infuse the HR organization with data, analytics, AI, all this stuff, and got a lot of pushback. And it wasn't until I brought governance into the procedure, transparency into the process, brought people in, that people started to get really excited and bought in, and we had a lot of great success after that. So I've seen it firsthand how, even though I was quite annoyed about it in the beginning, how much governance can actually move the needle from an innovation standpoint. And so if you're a technologist, you should care about governance because it's going to make innovation and adoption go faster. If you're a humanist and want to reduce the harms of AI, you should care about governance because it's going to manage those risks. So you should care about governance either way. Just to get into some of the nitty-gritty and also explain to you what governance is, because that's the next question that comes up. Okay, I get it, it's important, but what is it? Well, one aspect of governance is the regulatory landscape. In 2019, just before COVID, there was one law in the world related to AI. Now there's over 30 globally. And you're starting to see it come around as in a patchwork kind of way. Different regions, different states, and especially in the US, I think it's going to be very kind of state-driven. It's also going to be industry-driven, right? Different industries are going to incorporate AI regulations into their existing kind of regulatory framework, especially regulated industries like financial services, HR, insurance, medical, et cetera. Right? So you're going to see kind of a complicated ecosystem of regulations that are just going to be challenging to manage. Right? Some of the themes around this works. There we go. Some of the themes around these laws. First of all, there's a differentiation between developers and deployers, and this is an important construct that's coming out. Are you building the technology or are you using the technology? Well, both sides are in scope, they just have different obligations. So there's a recent lawsuit, Air Canada, I think it was last year, was using AI as a customer service interaction with their customers. And it made up some stuff about the refund policy, and a customer went ahead, and then it basically made it up, so then they were quite annoyed when they tried to get the refund. And so they sued. It wasn't a huge amount, but Air Canada tried to argue, hey, this isn't ours, we got this from a vendor, we got it off the shelf. I don't know if it was OpenAI or something else. And they lost, and so that was a really important precedent. You are deploying that technology, it doesn't matter if you just got it off the shelf, it doesn't matter if you got it from a vendor, you're responsible for that governance. So So that was a really important point. HR is considered especially talent acquisition because you're talking about people's careers, right? And if AI is starting to influence who gets hired and how they get hired, this is a big deal. Hiring, lending, health, insurance, these are considered high risk. There's another category which is even higher, which is national security, but we're not talking about that today. But the next level, high risk, HR is absolutely in there, right? And transparency is a big deal. And the other thing that's starting to happen now is an expectation of governance. And you see this in a couple of different laws, the EU AI Act, Colorado, where they lay out at a high level what good governance looks like, and they expect you to follow that. But they also say, if you're doing governance and something goes wrong, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Because in a sense, governance is about process. It's about doing things in the right way. And if you've set those processes up, stuff's going to go wrong, but then you're going to catch it, you're going to fix it, and that's all part of governance. And so that's good. And at the same time, if they catch you doing something and you don't have governance, well, then the benefit of the doubt goes the other way. Sorry, guys. I don't know. There we go. I'm going to skip this one. So what does good governance look like, right? There's kind of 5 pillars in our framework. First and foremost, I talk to organizations, and the first question I ask them is, hey, how much AI do you have? Do you know what it's doing? Do you know where it is? Do you know what applications do you have? Not one company I've talked to has been able to answer this yet. That's governance 101. Just know what you have. Inventory it. Know what applications you have. Know how they're being used. Know what risks they are. Not all. In fact, the vast majority of AI is going to be low risk. The vast majority. We've started documenting this. I would say 70 to 80% is going to be low risk. But there's going to be a 10 to 15% that you really want to focus your energy on. So know what those risks are. Know which ones are high risk. The second step is going to be really, really important, and this is humans in the loop. How many of you have heard of that phrase or term? Yeah? Good. This is crucial. Humans are going to be involved in this for a long, long time. We're not going to automate decisions to AI and just walk away for a very long time. And so humans have to play an important role, and this is governance, right? That's the role they need to play. Who's reviewing all the documentation and risks around these applications? Who's approving it? Who's accountable if something goes wrong? These decisions all have to be, who's setting the policies at the organizational level and at the functional level, right? These are all the roles and responsibilities that need to happen, and there's a lot of training that goes with that. Testing and monitoring, that's pretty straightforward. Are you testing for all the right things for performance, reliability, bias, hallucinations, data security, all of these things? How are you testing them? What's the cadence? There needs to be a testing program. I've already talked about regulatory compliance. And then the last piece that pulls it all together is, what are your policies? What are your ethics? Here's the interesting thing. There's some recent papers that have come out that are showing, and they don't know how. This is what's a little bit scary about this stuff. They don't know how, but some of these AI models are starting to develop their own heuristics around ethics. They're trying to develop their own values. We need to make sure that our values are embedded in this system. Your organizational values are embedded in these systems. So these policies and controls, what are your ethical policies? What are your controls? What are your guardrails at the organization level? So these laws don't actually get specific around that because they don't know your industry, they don't know your company. So you're going to have leeway to specify these things. And this is where, again, you guys, people analytics leaders, I know you guys have been talking a long time around ethics, around data. You're naturally going to be positioned to be able to then extend that and be part of that conversation at the organizational level around the ethics and controls and guardrails and testing of the AI solutions in your organization. AI governance is complicated in a couple different ways. It's different from InfoSec, which many of you may know, from cyber, which many of you may know. It's got a couple complications. First, it's new and confusing, so people don't quite understand it, and it's changing and evolving. There is one area where AI governance has already been in practice, which is where I come from, which is why I think we know what we're doing here, which is model risk management. Many of you may not have heard about that, but the financial services sector, again, I come from Capital One, has been building models for about 20, 25, 30 years. More machine learning models, but that's still AI, in a very regulated space, lending. And lending has a lot of regulations. And so companies like Capital One, from 1990 onwards, had to build model risk management practices. And AI governance is going to be a very close cousin of MRM. So people who know MRM, I think, are in the right direction in terms of how they're shaping AI governance. But there's a lot of branching and logic in terms of what you need to do. Are you a deployer or are you a developer of AI? Is it high risk, medium risk, or low risk? Right? Depending on each of these different questions and how you answer them, are you using Gen AI or more classical machine learning? So depending on the answers to these questions, your governance actions will look different. So that level of logic is quite different. Also, the role of humans is going to be a lot higher in this than in previous types of governance that we've had to do, whether it's InfoSec or cyber or whatever. Also, most organizations will be buying AI. This is different. When you think about data in the past, most organizations are using their own internal data. It's almost like 90% of your data is internal and maybe a small amount is external. Here it's going to be the opposite. Maybe 10% of stuff gets built internally and 90% is going to get bought externally. So that complicates things because now there's going to be an AI supply chain. You're going to have a vendor you're going to buy AI from. And guess what? You know where I'm going with this. They're going to have a vendor that they buy AI from. And they will as well, right? It's going to be a complex supply chain. So now all of a sudden governance gets a lot more complicated. How are you governing? It's easy when it's just all within your company. How are you thinking about that supply chain and how are you governing your vendor and their vendor? That starts to get really complex. And so that's what all of this is what we help to do to simplify this, automate this as much as possible, et cetera. I want to close with a couple of kind of predictions and recommendations. One is, again, I think I started off with this. AI governance is going to be a field that's going to be rapidly growing. I'll give you a couple of data points and anecdotes. One is if you go on LinkedIn, and we track this. We don't have great data yet, but the number of open roles for AI governance is increasing quite a bit. Right? Number two, searches for topics related to AI governance. ISO 42001, if you're not familiar, is likely going to be probably the gold standard from a certification standpoint, credentialing standpoint around AI governance for organizations. The searches for that has gone up 7x March to March, year over year. And the search for just AI governance more broadly has gone up between 2 and 3x. So you see people just really, and we see it, the inbound that we get, the questions that people are coming to us with, they're really starting to do this. 2 years ago, I was knocking on doors and people are like, yeah, go away. Right? Like this is not a priority. And now we see really a real shift. And part of that is, I guess, some of the regulations, right? Colorado, Illinois, California, and EU AI Act all go into effect starting later this year or early 2026. So that's obviously precipitating a lot of this. But also, people are getting closer to where Shopify is. They're really wanting to adopt this stuff. And legal risk and compliance is like, hey, guys, what are we doing about this? Right? So you're really starting to see this become more important. It's still at a point where it's a differentiator. So we're seeing some of the customers that we're helping, as they get certified and as they become responsible, it's actually helping them win in the market with their customers. But I don't expect that to last long. I think in another year or two, it's going to be table stakes. So where are you guys and your organizations on that journey? And then on the recommendation side, again, 3 things I'll say here. I think people analytics is a huge opportunity to lead on this way internally in HR at Capital One. In your organizations. And the reason for that is you guys are already driving a lot of things related to AI, right? You're already leading the way on data, on analytics, on product, on technology, maybe even on AI. And this kind of naturally is a natural segue. People are going to look to you. I've seen that. People look to their people analytics leaders and organizations and say, hey, where should we go forth on AI? What are the risks? Help us educate that. So they're going to be coming to you more and more, and you have the opportunity to educate them, to compel them. Second, I would like to see HR have a bigger seat at the table in enterprise governance councils. So a lot of companies are starting to build enterprise governance councils. They'll have a leader from an AI team, a leader from technology, a leader from legal, risk compliance, et cetera. I think HR should have a seat at the table, both because it can influence on the values and the ethics of AI in the organization. 2, because AI is going to impact jobs, and so they should be involved. And 3, HR itself is a huge user of AI, and so they're going to have a strong perspective. So I would like you guys to push for HR to be quite involved in enterprise efforts. And the third thing, last thing I'll leave you with, this is going to be a growing field. So if you're looking at, hey, where do I learn, where do I grow in an era of AI, learn about AI governance. It's actually quite interesting when you dig in, because it is a lot about our own values and ethics and guardrails and how we think about the world. Matthew and I were having a really interesting conversation yesterday around where is this technology going, not just from a work standpoint, but from a value standpoint. And you have the opportunity to learn about that and shape that in your organizations. And so I'll just leave you with, again, if you're a company that's just jumping into AI and don't know what you're doing, I think that's a lot of risk. If you're really, really waiting for everyone else to get into it, I think that's a lot of risk. So I think there's a really nice middle path here that you can go down, and I hope the folks in this room take the opportunity to go lead the way. So thank you very much.